Well, hey, Dave Melenda here, Positive Polarity Podcast. Hope things are going awesome for you this week. I got a great one. You know, you've come to expect greatness on this show. So today is no different. And I have a really good question. And I want to ask you, what does your next level look like? And, I'm like, man, that's a really good question. I want to hang out with the guy that asked that. So I'm honored to be hanging out with Alan Lazarus. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing well. This is my second, actually third, no, second podcast of the day. I'm very, very
Excellent.
grateful to be here. I really appreciate it. I started
Oh,
listening
no.
to podcasts 9 years ago,
Yeah,
and they really helped me reorient my trajectory. So now I'm
sure.
very grateful to be here and help people do that. Yeah.
Awesome. You're the CEO and founder of Next Level University. So fill us in on what Next Level University is.
So it's exactly what it sounds like. The university is an organization that helps you learn, and next level is how to create a bigger, better, brighter future. Because no matter how hard your past has been, or how hard your present is, there's always a spotless future and you have a choice and you can take personal responsibility for that in advance. And I was actually just talking on a podcast earlier, our
Yeah,
podcast about standards. And so if you want to get to the next level, you ultimately have to figure out, okay, where do I have to raise my standards? And then how do I actually do that? And I think that that's what goal setting ultimately is, which is I set this goal that's in the future that I want to achieve. And
sure.
it forces me, the metaphorical me, to look at my current behaviors, beliefs, say, think, do, feel, believe, and up the ante, up my standards.
That's awesome. Well, and like we talked about before we jumped on, a lot of entrepreneurs listening, they're so dialed into, looking ahead at their next paycheck or trying to find their next hire, trying to find their next product, their next customer, right? So, like, how do you, for somebody that isn't really used to thinking in these terms of like next level, or, they're just so focused on today and what's going on there, you help people kind of raise their head a little bit, Alan, to be able to at least realize that there are these other opportunities out there.
So a lot of people have heard the quote of you're working too much in your business and not on your business. But the problem with that is it's similar to the work hard, not or work smart, not hard. The
Yeah,
problem is with both of those quotes, we call them bumper sticker self improvement.
sure.
The truth is you need to do both,
Yeah,
particularly in the beginning. So
right,
people say, well, you're so busy working in your business that you're not working on your business. Listen, you have to do both
right.
simultaneously.
Yep,
And the way that I help people is I help them create the two trains, and it's kind of a metaphor, but one train is short-term profitability, and that's what you're saying most business owners are overly focused on.
right, correct.
And over here, the second train needs to be something that builds the brand, the long-term profitable. So
Sure,
for us, Next Level University, the podcast, that's the long-term profitable brand building thing. But the short-term profitability day to day needs to be focused on business coaching and something called Next Level Podcast Solutions that we produce podcasts. So
sure,
this makes money that feeds the long-term train, and the
sure.
long-term train compounds long-term to build brand and business to feed the short-term train. So they have to be congruent trains, and not only do you have to work hard and smart,
Yeah,
you also have to work on short-term profitability and long-term profitability. You also have to work in your business as an operator and as a business owner in terms of 10,000 foot view. And I
sure.
think that's why it's so difficult is because it's the in a book by Jim Collins, Good to Great, he says the genius of the and. It's not an or, it's an and.
Yeah,
You have to
yeah,
be work smart and hard. And I
right.
think that that's where a lot of us get tripped up because usually we're really good at one, not the other.
Wow, that's brilliant. And I think so. I'm a black and white thinker, Alan, and I think to myself, it's either working in your business or, like you said, it's the or, not the and. So I'm just going to say from right up front for me and probably a lot of people listening right now is, we have this black or white thinking. So I'm going to open up this pill box and I'm going to work on the business. I'm going to close that pill box and then I'm going to work in the business, right? You have these pieces that are so different from each other. And you're saying to work on both of them. That's hard. Like you said, that's hard for people to do. And I think we sometimes we're afraid to think outside the box. We're afraid to think outside our comfort zone. So we just stay with what we know. So does Next Level University help people with that awareness of those two pieces there?
Definitely. We talk about duality all the time.
Okay.
Duality is this idea that you can hold two seemingly opposing ideas in your consciousness simultaneously. Now,
Gotcha.
there's two ways to handle this. So I have a business partner, his name's Kevin, and he is overly focused on the short term and he has what we call productive paranoia. So he's always worried about going out of business. And I'm the
Sure.
long-term optimistic visionary who thinks everything's going to work out. And
Sure.
so
Yep.
luckily we call it drive to five. Luckily we come to center. So earlier today we actually just came, we had a big paycheck come in for lack of better phrasing. And I was like, all right, you're traveling to Podfest next week. Throw 1,000 of that here, throw 1,000 of that here. He's like, dude, let's just do 500. What do you think? And I was like, yeah, good point. Okay, 500. Because I'm so optimistic,
Sure.
momentum over everything, but sometimes that cash on hand isn't enough,
Sure.
right? And so we overly invest in long-term things that don't pay off for a long time. So we have a 22
Right.
person team. So for in hindsight, this is very clear. We've been in business for 7 years. In the beginning, we had no idea. But he
Right.
has level 10 humility and I have very high self-belief.
Sure.
And usually there's very few people who hold both of those because
Yep.
the high self-belief visionary optimist, which would be me, actually struggles with humility. I need to work on humility. I don't need to work on self belief. I already have that. For
Yeah.
him, he needs to work on self belief. He already has the humility. He already thinks things are going to fail. So
Sure.
his job is don't go out of business. My
Right.
job is build a future multi-million dollar business, right? So,
Sure.
and we just
Sure.
happen to respect each other and admire each other enough, and luckily have enough emotional intelligence to actually have those healthy discords.
Sure. So, and that brings up a really good question, Alan, because you got lucky. It worked out really well for you to find that person, your yin to your yang, so to speak. For somebody that's like listening, that is kind of a solopreneur, doesn't have right now today a partner or, a sounding board, accountability partner, whatever you want to call it. They don't have that you guys have there. What would you suggest for that individual to try to help them get out of that spot that they're in?
That's such a great question. And I wish if I could go back and talk to my younger self, this is one of the most important things in the world. Kevin and I had similar core aspirations, meaning we want to head to the same goals,
Sure.
essentially similar goals.
Yeah. Yep.
We had similar core values and we had similar core beliefs.
Sure.
However, we are very complementary in who we are.
Yep.
So I'm the IQ, da, 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 computer engineer, master's in business, everything structure, organization, discipline, logic,
Yep.
rationality. He's
Sure.
the emotionally intelligent relationship builder who's relatable and everyone loves him, but he
Sure.
doesn't have that long-term strategic thinking to the same extent that
Sure.
I do. So we stumbled upon that and maybe it was
Yeah.
intuitive, I don't know. But
Sure.
here's the problem. I often joke, I say if you want a coach, you probably need a therapist. That was me. If you want a therapist, you probably need a coach. That was Kevin.
Sure. Yeah.
And what's the difference between a coach and a therapist? The therapist is more emotional and focused on emotional intelligence. The
Yep.
coach is more focused on strategy, long-term strategy and belief.
Sure. Sure.
And so for anyone out there who doesn't feel like they have that yin to their yang, most likely in your intimate relationship, you probably already do because of the polarities of an intimate relationship. Usually it's a masculine and a feminine, and usually it's
Sure.
one partner's more humble, one partner's more self-belief, and that's actually you complete each other, so to speak, right? Even if you
Sure.
think you don't. The
Yep.
question is, do you have compatible core aspirations, core values, and core beliefs? And most of the time, not most of the time, a lot of the time is the answer is no. My girlfriend and I, we coach couples. We have been for 3.5 years, and that's been fascinating. So, but ultimately in business, there's an incubator program called Y Combinator that I applied to back in 2012 when I started my first business. And they wouldn't accept anyone who didn't have a co-founder. And the reason why, excuse me, is that the statistical probability of a business succeeding long term, particularly in tech,
Yeah.
is very low if you don't have a co-founder. And the
Nice.
reason why, in hindsight, I understand this, at the time I didn't, is because of this yin to the yang, this ability to complement each other's, because every strength comes with a weakness and every weakness comes
Sure.
with a strength. And so if you can be emotionally intelligent and vulnerable and courageous and humble enough to actually sit there and have a team that works well together, all headed towards similar goals with similar core values, but
Yeah.
complementary skill sets and mindsets, you're actually going to
Sure.
end up way closer to the truth. And
Yeah.
I always think of a GPS with bad data. You're going to accidentally drive into a lake and then think something's wrong with you when in reality you just don't have accurate data. But if you
Sure.
have a couple people, you're much more likely to get to the truth.
Sure. So is Next Level University, could they be that opposing force for somebody listening? I mean, have you guys, is that part of what you guys offer?
What we offer is essentially, and this is why I like one-on-one coaching, because podcasting's harder because you cast a wider net. So I asked you prior to recording, who are we
Yeah,
talking to?
sure.
So in one-on-one coaching, the medicine that will kill one patient or that will cure one patient will actually kill another. And that's why advice is so hard to give, because
Sure.
it's all contextual based on the goal, the circumstance, right? So if
Yep.
you have 100 grand cash on hand, the decisions you have to make with that is very different than if you have 5 grand.
Yep.
And so everything has to be custom to the context and to the goal
Sure.
and to the circumstances. And
Yep.
so in Next Level University, what we call it is drive to five, meaning over here on the 0 end, you're on one extreme. Over here on the 10 end, you're on one extreme. So one
Gotcha.
extreme, for example, we'll just use self-belief as one example because that's where we started. If
Yeah.
you don't believe in yourself at all, you need to build and start small and start building momentum and starting to believe in yourself a little bit more. If you already believe in yourself at level 10, the last thing you need is more delusion. You actually need to
Right.
be humbled and you need to benchmark your perception up against reality, and you need to get around someone who can healthfully contrast that delusion, because I've met a lot of delusional people, and in some ways I was one of them in the past. So Next Level University, essentially what the conversations are that we do, not only through coaching but the podcast itself, we try to give both sides of the spectrum so that you can identify where you're at and
Yeah.
then drive to five, meaning get centered. So if you are on my end and you resonate more with me, you most likely need to build humility and have more productive paranoia
Sure. Okay.
and be a little less optimistic. If you're
Gotcha.
on Kevin's end and don't believe in yourself and you don't think things are going to work out, you most likely need to build some more belief and start working on your negative self-talk. And so, yes, we definitely help people get to center, which is just a metaphor for my GPS is actually accurate.
Sure. Is it I'm the word compromise kind of popped into my head when I think of the drive to five, because I feel like you have two people on opposite ends that are trying to find a middle ground. Is compromise another word, or is that am I off on that?
No, so I'm grateful that you brought that up, because I think compromise in and of itself, it presupposes one person is to some extent relinquishing their position
Hmm.
to try to go somewhere where they don't necessarily believe they should. I think
Sure.
what I prefer for a word would be integration, which is
Okay.
here's Kevin's perspective, here's Alan's perspective. Let's find a more optimal middle ground that we
Gotcha.
both agree is best,
Sure.
having had the healthy discord. So I don't ever want Kev to just go with me because he just is going to presuppose that I'm more accurate. As a matter of
Yeah.
fact, that's actually led us astray many times, because he'll say in hindsight, I knew this was going to happen. It's, well, why didn't you tell me? He's like,
Super
I
easy to
tried.
say
Yeah,
that, eh?
yeah, exactly.
Way to go,
Exactly.
Calvin. Come on, dude.
Yeah, yeah,
Seriously.
yeah. But same. I mean, I say the same thing, right? And he's, well,
Yeah.
why did you let me do that? You said to
Yeah.
buy the BMW. It's,
Yeah.
well, I
Yeah.
figured at the time it was a good move. But
Right.
ultimately, what it comes down to is we are trying to find the more optimal choice. There is no right or wrong. There's just more optimal. And
Sure.
optimal is a computer engineering term essentially of, it's called an optimal stopping problem. I like to use Goldilocks as an example. So too hot, too cold, too much, too little. Everything
Yeah.
is that. I mean, am I being too much on this podcast right now, or am I being too little?
Sure.
I think probably too much. I tend to be too much. The point is, though, is there's an optimal resonance for every opportunity. And another good example would be, I put the nachos in for a minute and a half, they burn. I put them in for 30 seconds, the cheese isn't melted. The
Yeah.
optimal decision is 1 minute. But
Sure.
in life and in business, you spend your whole life trying to find and dial in
Optimal.
what's
Yeah.
optimal. Yeah.
Right. No, absolutely. So so go back to what we started with about next level. So now we've kind of raised, I guess is the right word, raised the awareness of that there is a potential next level. There is definitely a next level. Whether you want to take it or not is obviously up to you. We're talking about it in business and in personal. So if we look at it from business perspective for a minute, and again, we'll take the average entrepreneur that, is cruising along in life and doing everything that they know to do. They obviously have a bunch of blind spots. This is probably one big blind spot that they have, that there is like this next level. When somebody comes to you, Alan, and says, I'm not happy on the level that I'm at, or I'd like to move into that next level, what does that look like? Or what's kind of the next step if somebody has that interest at that spot?
It's again, really appreciate the question. So I have 26 people on my roster right now, 27 actually, as of yesterday, which is good. And it's been 7 years of coaching, and I started out with mindset coaching and peak performance coaching and life coaching and fitness. I was a fitness coach way, way, way back. So I've been coaching for 7 years now, and all different people, all different walks of life, all different countries, all different backgrounds, all different ages. And so everywhere from a 16-year-old named Micaiah who's starting a YouTube channel all the way to a 63-year-old who's been in business for decades, already a multimillionaire. So again, going back to the original point and why it's so hard to give any sort of guidance to anyone
Sure. Yeah.
is the guidance is completely custom to the individual.
Sure.
So,
Sure.
but what isn't custom is the principles. And so one of the principles that I've come to understand over the years is that one of the reasons why most people don't achieve their goals, and I say most people statistically because I looked this up in the beginning of January. We did a monthly meetup to set goals for the year, and I looked it up, and it said that 4% of people, only 4% of people ever have written goals that they write down. And then only 8% of those people actually achieve those.
Yeah.
Now, again, this is Google research. I don't know how
Sure.
accurate that is, but I'll tell you what,
Sure.
I know that most people do not achieve their goals and dreams,
Right.
unfortunately. And that's
Yep.
just statistically true. Okay.
Yep.
Why don't we all have mansions on the beach? Okay.
Right. Yep.
And so I asked myself this question. I've been asking myself this question kind of my entire life because I've always been sort of a type A overachiever. And for me, goals and dreams have always come, I would say, more naturally. And they didn't come as naturally to some of my friends. And I'm trying to figure out, okay, why is that? Number one is self belief, all this different stuff. But what I've come to understand is that most people are setting goals and dreams, particularly goals, based on a version of them that isn't real. And so my goal in the first session is to help them figure out who they really are first. Okay, so let me give you a tangible example.
Yeah.
Someone comes to me and they say they want to be a billionaire. And I'm not kidding, this actually has happened. And I say, okay, awesome. It's possible that that's true,
Sure.
but I seriously doubt it statistically. I said, okay, how many billionaires are there on the planet? And they're like, oh, I don't know, 10,000, 20,000. I said, there's 3,200. I said, how many of them did it without investors and without generational wealth?
Yeah.
And she's like, I don't know, 3,000. I said, definitely not. Probably a third of 3,200. So probably less than 1,000. And then how many of them were women and were ethnic women, minorities? And again, I'm not trying to be unkind here. Please don't
Sure.
villainize me for
Yeah.
this. The point
Absolutely.
is, do you understand the game that you're playing? That's like saying I want to be Michael Jordan. And if
Right.
you want to be Michael Jordan, that's great.
Yep.
Seriously, go for it. But you
Yeah.
better be good at basketball.
Right.
And by the way, her core value is family.
Yeah. Oh
If
yeah.
you
There
have a
you go.
core value of family and you're 29 years
Yeah.
old and you want to be a
Yeah.
billionaire, you're in some serious trouble because you're going to have to work 6 days a week, 80-hour weeks every week for the next 3 decades to
Yep.
even come close. And
Right.
even then, there's no guarantee, right? So
Right.
the problem with us, all of us, myself included, is when we build our goals and our future and our next level based on low self awareness that are outside of alignment with our core values, we either have to sell our soul to achieve the goal, which
Yep.
I think is the worst idea ever, or
Right.
we have to go outside of alignment with our core values constantly, which, by the way, is not sustainable. And the only way to achieve real success in anything is through sustainability and consistency over time, which you're not going to be able to do unless it's a goal that is built on who you really are.
Sure. That's awesome. Hey, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, I want to like unpack how you help, or, again, for the people listening, to try to help them in this next level. So we'll be right back. Welcome back. I'm honored to be hanging out with Alan Lazaros, CEO and founder of Next Level University in Massachusetts. So, welcome to everybody. Welcome back. And thank you again, Alan, for jumping on and hanging out with us today. I love this next level stuff. On one hand, I totally understand the thought process that next level to you means something way different to me. So I like how there's not like, hey, A, B, C, and then they're done. But I like what you're talking about, how there's these principles. So we started with self-belief. And then again, can you accomplish that? I think is really powerful because, like you said, if I wanted to be Tiger Woods, 2.0, but I never golf and I don't like it, and I'm not willing to invest the time. And like you said, maybe family's a core value. Obviously, we have to be real. Do you run into a lot of people that have that idea that, oh, I want to be something, but I'm not going to be able to be that? Do you run into those people a lot?
Definitely. So I would say the majority of people, there's three things that the GPS needs in order to get to its destination, and it's a freaking perfect metaphor. And again, I only learned this over time. I didn't know any of this in the beginning of my coaching journey because all a coach's job really is I help you be more successful towards your goals, not mine, yours.
Right.
And so I had to figure out how to do that. And over the years, I have a 10,000 hour tracker, and I'm at like 8,000 coaching, training, podcasting, and speaking. And over the years, I've just realized how many people are setting goals based on a low awareness of themselves. So the
Yeah.
GPS needs three things. The first thing it needs is a current location. It needs an accurate current location. Accurate is the key word. It needs to know where you are.
Yep.
Okay. The second thing it needs is a destination address, an accurate destination address, which is a goal. And then the third thing it needs, and this is the part that a lot of people don't know, is it needs accurate data on the terrain. Because if there's a mountain to your right and it thinks it's a lake, you're in trouble. And so,
Hmm.
what does that mean in the metaphor of the human condition in terms of goals and
Sure.
achievement and next
Yep.
level? I would say the current location, accurate current location, is self awareness. Strengths and weaknesses, I don't care if it's DISC assessment or Myers Briggs or whatever, you need to understand
Sure.
your uniqueness.
Yep.
I'm a computer engineer. Everyone knows that. I think in numbers. If you're listening to this and I don't resonate, it's because you think in a different modality than I do. Everything is rationality, everything is logic, numbers, mathematics. And
Hmm.
if that's not your modality of thinking, a lot of what I'm saying doesn't resonate. But
Sure.
unfortunately, what you desperately need is probably my modality of thinking, right? Or at least someone in your corner who has it.
Or
Okay,
we need
so
Kevin, right?
yeah, yeah.
Or
Or
we
we
need.
need Kev because exactly. So his modality of thinking is words and concepts.
Yep.
He's a linguist, so he was a rapper, that kind of stuff. He's good with words and concepts. I'm good with math and numbers. And so
Sure.
emotionally driven people and then logically driven people usually don't get along. Fortunately, we have, and we need both
Yep.
perspectives. So that's really the yin and yang thing that we talked about earlier. But
Yep.
number one is accurate current location means accurate self awareness. And that's an infinite game. That's a mountain that gets higher as you climb it, just like next level. Okay. Then
Sure.
the next thing that you need is goals based on the accurate self awareness. So you need to create the accurate goal, the destination address based on where you are. So if you get number one wrong, you automatically get number two wrong,
Sure. Gotcha.
right? So when you shoot for billionaire, quote unquote, when you
Yeah.
don't actually know that that's not conducive to who you are because you love to go to the beach every weekend, I'm not making that wrong. I'm just saying if you want to be a billionaire, you better believe you can't go on vacation every couple months.
Right.
And most likely, statistically, I mean, there's very few. Yeah, I mean, honestly, yeah, no, you can't. You just can't.
Right.
um,
Right.
uh, and then the third thing is the how to. And that's the how do we actually, okay, here's a detour. Do we take the highway or the roads? There's construction, and that's the metaphor too, which is how do I build self belief? So self awareness says I don't have enough self belief to achieve my goals. Okay, how do you build it? Well, there's a formula to build self belief. It's state, prove, self assign. Okay, state, I'm going to say I'm going to go to the gym tomorrow. Okay, prove, I'm going to go to the gym and prove to myself that I'm going to go. And then I'm going to self assign it. Look, I did that. Now your subconscious and unconscious has an identity of I believe in myself a little bit more. It's keeping the small
Sure.
promises you make to yourself, builds
Gotcha.
belief. But if you keep setting goals that are incongruent with who you are and then not achieving them, what does that do to your self belief?
Right.
Deep down, your unconscious and subconscious doesn't trust you, doesn't believe in you, but you inflate with ego and make it seem like you do because you don't want to be seen as less than in society. So you create this ego that's false self, and that's known as the persona. And so when you build goals and dreams based on the persona, you have to hold up that persona and amplify that persona in order to achieve it. And that's when really you either don't achieve the goals or you end up deeply unfulfilled when you do achieve them.
Hmm. Well, and I think out of the accurate current location, destination, and terrain, I feel like most of us skip over the EQ part. We don't have a good self-awareness. We don't have a good self-assessment. We do a ton of work with DISC and EQ. And so, yeah, there's a lot of people that aren't even really aware of where they're at. So they kind of skip that. They jump in to throw an address on the GPS, i.e., a goal, and say, I want to do X, whatever X is. And I don't know if people magically think that just throwing it out into the atmosphere um, magically has it happen for you. But, I mean, I laugh because every January at the club, it's like, oh, here comes the influx of people. Give them a couple weeks, the parking lot will be empty again. And
Yep.
so, but so for somebody, how do you get that accurate current location? I mean, like you said, DISC, Myers-Briggs, Strength Finders. I mean, assessing where you are is, really helpful to know where you're going because otherwise, I guess anywhere can get you there, right?
The very first thing is you have to actually understand the value of having an accurate self assessment. So when you mentioned setting a huge goal and then just going up, getting after it, that was me in the past.
Okay.
When I was younger, I would set these big, audacious goals and dreams, but I didn't understand until after my car accident. I had a car accident at 26. My father passed away in a car accident when he was 28. So this was it was kind of the second chance he never got.
Yeah.
And that's when I had what is referred to as an ego death, where my identity burns down, the phoenix
Yep.
rises from those ashes, and so the real Alan emerged from that experience. Physically, I was okay, but mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, I was. That's when self awareness became my focus.
Sure.
That's when
Sure.
self improvement became my focus, because I was achievement oriented, external achievement, but I wasn't self improvement focused. And then I went the opposite. I went all in on self improvement, and I actually went broke and stopped achieving. So you need again, you need both. You need external achievement in tandem with self improvement.
Sure.
And
Gotcha.
so, whichever one you are less developed in, be honest with yourself and work on the other one
Yeah.
so that you can be an ambidextrous 21st century leader. And that's same with IQ EQ. I have one person I coach. He has an 136 IQ. He's brilliant. He's an AP Calc teacher. He's a multimillionaire in real estate. That's all great, but you need to work on the EQ side. You need to work on the self awareness side. You need to work on the okay. You believe in yourself a lot and you're very mathematical, but
Yeah.
you over complexify everything. You're super type A meticulous, so you have to work on simplifying things and leading other people so that you don't have to do everything yourself because you're so used to this standard, right? If
Yeah.
136 IQ standard, you're not going to be able to delegate that. So you
Right.
need to learn how to create systems and strategic operating procedures to actually create a team and lead a team. But it's hard to lead a team when you don't understand that you have a 136 IQ and other people don't,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And if you don't have EQ, good luck leading people.
Right.
No
Yeah.
chance. So hopefully that answers
Yeah.
your question. Yeah.
No, it does. And I'm curious to know as others are listening, what happened to the billionaire lady? Where did she land or what did she, what happened?
Yeah, so I actually still coach her. She's one of my
Okay,
longest clients. I adore her. She was a dear friend before she was a client. I was actually a mentor, and then eventually and now she's a weekly paying client. It's so cool the transition. She eventually got to the point where she realized that that was not aligned,
sure.
and she actually had the similar ego death, which was painful. Of
Yeah,
okay, I'm not the type of person who is going to end up there unless I basically give up most of my core values, which
yeah.
isn't sustainable. Because
Right.
even if she were to become a billionaire, she wouldn't be fulfilled because the process and her lifestyle in order to align with that would not be aligned with who she is. So for me, everyone listening and watching knows I'm a type A achiever. I don't want to hang out. Other people like hanging out. I never have and I never will. I have to own that about myself.
Yeah.
Can you imagine this tempo just hanging out? Other
Yeah.
people love the beach. I'm sitting there going, what's the next goal and dream, right?
Right.
I
Yeah.
Other people love the beach. They actually love it. They just want to
Yeah.
hang out all the time. I've always been like, I can't believe like why is everyone so lazy? They're not lazy. They're not
Yeah.
type A achievers like me. And
Yeah.
so I used to think people were unintelligent and lazy, and I'm not trying to be unkind. In
Sure.
reality, I'm hyper intelligent and hyper work ethic. Didn't
Sure.
understand that,
Yep.
right? And so people that want more work ethic, who want more strategic thinking, they can come to me for coaching, but that doesn't mean they're going to shoot for what I'm shooting for.
Sure.
And so
Sure.
this person has allowed that phoenix to burn down. She's risen from those ashes and she's set goals that are actually aligned, that are both she's capable of, and fulfill her along the way.
It's
So
great.
she just set
Wow.
a lower bar, but that takes
Sure.
humility,
Yep.
takes a lot of humility to say, you know what? I'm not billionaire type. That's
Yeah.
okay. There's 8 billion
Yeah.
people on the planet. There's only 3,200 billionaires, and half of them are generational wealth. That's okay,
Right.
right? If you're
Wow.
a billionaire type, trust me, you know it, and you don't want to tell anyone about
Yeah. Well,
it.
Kevin, we're gonna have to make sure that we force Alan to like lay out for an hour and a half on the beach and not move. See how that works.
Only if I'm in the water getting a workout, man.
There you go. Exactly. There's got to be multitasking going
Yeah,
on, right?
yeah,
Otherwise,
yeah,
forget it. So
yeah,
that's awesome.
yeah.
I mean, so I'm just curious. So from a team perspective, I want to kind of as we start to land, I want to flip the spot a little bit and ask the question for people that are listening that are in leadership that maybe they want to inspire or encourage their team to go to next levels. How does that work if I've identified some next levels for me, I'm on my way to those successfully, and then I see somebody on my team or maybe even somebody in my family, but how does one person encourage another without either, squashing their dreams, allowing them to fall short? I mean, there seems like that's a really delicate spot to be if you're trying to help your team along to the next level as well.
I had someone reach out recently. My girlfriend and I, Emilia, we started a fitness challenge years ago, actually, at the stage, which is wild to say. But I told her I wanted to beat my old best. And I said, my old best is 4 months. I just want to see if I can beat 4 months. So without missing a day of exercise, 30 minutes, nothing crazy, 30 minutes, walking my dog counts, soccer counts, basketball counts, weight training counts, Stairmaster counts, treadmill counts, 30
Okay.
minutes per day. I want to beat my
Video
old
games?
best. No, video
Video
games. No,
games of doing something accurate
I
or
don't have
active?
a Wii tennis. Does that count?
Yeah.
No, but it
Yeah,
has to be
exactly.
30 minutes of movement. So running,
Sure.
swimming, biking,
Sure.
all that.
Yep. Yep.
And so I ended up passing the 4 month mark, and she's like, "You did it, awesome!" And she did it with me, which was awesome.
Yeah.
That made it way
Yep.
easier because accountability is so important.
For
And then
sure.
lifestyle, obviously, when you have an intimate partner who you live with, it's really helpful if they're on the journey. If they're not,
Sure.
that sucks because
Yep.
it's well, hey, do you want to, You want to
Yeah.
lift? You want to work
Yeah.
out? And then you
Yeah.
have to leave
Yeah.
them. You love them.
Yeah.
It's that whole thing.
Want a piece of pizza, Alan?
Yeah, exactly. And so we passed the 4 month mark, and I said, let's just keep going.
Yeah.
And I said I want to shoot for a year. And so we got
Oh,
to the year
nice.
mark. We drove home from the gym one night. I said we did it. And I turned to her and she says, "What if we did this forever?" And I had like a mini panic attack. Because I know what that means and I try really hard not to break the promises I make to myself.
Sure.
And I said, "Okay." is that even possible? Like, could we exercise every day for the rest of our life if it was 30 minutes, even if walking our dog counts? Like, we went for a walk
Sure.
last night. Okay. We
Right.
actually upped it to 40 minutes, believe it or not.
Sure.
So, anyways, March 1st, 2022 is when we started. So we're coming up on 2.5 years, which is wild to say. It's awesome. At the beginning, it was cool. Now it's just weird to talk about because it's a big mirror. And I think a lot of people think, good for you, bro.
Yeah.
The reason I'm talking about this is that I have been amazed at how many other people have ended up doing streaks. I have
Sure.
one team member who's done 636 days of a mile a day. I'm not
Wow.
kidding. It's
Yeah.
And so leadership, 90% of it is lead by example.
Yeah.
90% of it is don't be full of it. When you say you're going to do something, as simple as it sounds, it's unbelievably difficult because you have to make sure that your mouth has the humility to not say things that are impossible to sustain.
Yeah.
If I had tried for 3 hours a day, there's no possibility. It's almost impossible to do 30 minutes a day.
Yeah.
With a household, I have 3 pets, I have 3 businesses between the two of us. It's been alarmingly difficult. I'm talking 11:30 at night. We're in the hotel room. We forgot to exercise and we're out in the
Oh,
freezing cold walking in the parking lot. Yeah, exactly. And so leading by example is, in my opinion, the best way to inspire, motivate, and educate. And then on
sure.
top of that, if you add coaching to the
Yeah.
mix, so I have a 22-person team. Half of them are freelancers, half of them are quote unquote core team members, and I coach
Sure.
all the core team. So I stay
Sure.
in touch, I build relationships, I see what their goals or dreams are. I try to align those goals and dreams with the goals and dreams of the organization. But ultimately, I'm leading by example. And I had someone reach out recently on one of my posts and said, "Holy crap, that's a hell of a streak." And we caught up, and he used to be on my team years ago, and we still have a great relationship. And he said, "Dude, it's so inspiring to see you still going." And
Nice.
so even though people don't necessarily, and for all I knew, he hadn't even followed a single thing I do.
Sure.
And so I think leadership mostly is unconscious and subconscious. I think that we are inspired by the people around us,
Yeah.
and usually we're inspired by the virtues, humility, courage, work ethic,
Yeah.
self-discipline, goals, generosity, these things that we do not say,
Yeah.
they inspire people.
That's
And
great.
you can, if you start to notice the people around you having fitness streaks, you realize, holy crap, I really do have a big influence, and then that makes you want to do even better, and it can be this really
Sure.
positive feedback loop.
That's great. Do you think, Alan, that like if somebody's not inspired by that, if you have somebody on your team and because I struggle with having everybody to be like me,
Yeah.
but yet because you want diversity of personality, diversity of thought on your team. If they don't think like you, how do you like, I'm doing all this, working every day, doing this 30-minute thing, like you're saying, I'm doing everything I'm doing. I feel like I'm being a great example, but yet somebody on my team's just not, engaging for whatever reason. At that point, I almost wonder, is that like the wrong person on the team, or is that just like a different version that we kind of need to accept? I'm just curious what your thoughts are.
I appreciate the question. These have been great. So there's this duality, as always. On one hand, you have a perfect culture where everyone's aligned with the core values and everyone has
Yep.
similar goals and dreams and everyone's rowing in the same direction at the same rate. And that's
Right.
called Candyland. It's not
Yep,
real,
exactly.
but it's an
Yes.
ideal that you can climb toward. And then on the other extreme, you just let anyone in. They spill beer on the carpets, metaphorically.
Yep.
They treat
Sure.
people worse, right? And that kind of thing.
Yep.
So the best I've come up with is core aspirations and core values and core beliefs. So,
Gotcha.
and usually it's an energetic fit. So we've got 22 people, but it took many plus and minuses to get there over the years. And I'm acting like we've been in business for 70 years. It's only been 7 years, really
Yeah.
9 for me, 7 for Kevin,
Sure.
9 for me.
Yep.
And we've had some come and go. And I think we've had one or two boomerangs that ended up in hindsight not working out. But what I've come to understand, so we have 3 core values at NLU. The first one is growth mindset. The second one is being impact driven, meaning the goal is to serve. It has to be the primary goal. So right now, you can tell in this podcast, my primary goal is to serve.
Hmm.
I might have secondary, tertiary goals, maybe work with me. That's great. Grow my podcast. Awesome. but the primary goal is to serve.
Sure.
And that I think shines through. I do energetically.
Hmm.
Okay. And then number three is humility. I did not know this. This is the biggest blind spot of all time.
Yeah.
People with low humility, I think, are the worst people for your team because they're going to
Yeah.
tell you how to run your business.
Right.
And when you pour into them, it's going to go to their head and they're going to get
Yep.
delusional and then attack you, and it's just bad news. So
It's
so
ugly. Yeah, absolutely.
yeah, it gets really ugly. So inward humility. So for example, a lot of people, I come off arrogant. I understand why. If I have level 10 self-belief and only level 8 humility, I'm going to come off as level 2 arrogant. I get it. I get it. But inward humility is actually fairly high. I'm the one reading books every day. I'm the one in the gym. I'm the
Sure.
one doing the work, and I'm the one working
Right.
late and starting early and trying to go to bed on time and tracking my sleep. Those are humble things to do. You don't track your
Right.
sleep when you're arrogant.
Right.
Now, I come off as arrogant, and I understand that a lot of that is self belief. And if you feel that way out there listening or watching, you just might not believe in yourself that much. And quite frankly, I probably believe in myself more than I'm humble. Fair. Okay. That said, it was very hard for me to identify people who don't have humility. Humility is hard to look at because people can fake it.
Yeah.
People can fake humility. And I've been really, I worked on something. I have a filter now. I said, do not allow any kryptonite into your inner circle. And I have this filter. It's called an unmedzai score, and I'll give it to you. Okay. UNMEDSAI. These are the people that I don't allow into my inner circle. I can allow them on the outskirts. They can be a part of the community. But if you have a really high unmedzai score, you won't be on the team.
Sure.
Okay. So the first one is unstable. The second one is naive. The third is manipulative. The fourth is entitled.
Mm.
The fifth is delusional. The sixth is significance driven. The people that pretend it's not about them, but they make everything about them.
Yeah.
And then the seventh is arrogant. And the eighth is immature.
Mm.
People who are in those categories who have a high unmedzai score. So from now on, what I do is I rate from 0 to 10. How unstable is this person intuitively?
Gotcha.
And again, I'm
Sure.
not perfect. I'm just trying to get a benchmark here.
Sure.
Naive. And by the way, mine's not perfect. I'm naive as hell, especially with people.
Yeah.
Right. But if there's any level of manipulation or entitlement, gone. I do not want people in my life who have a high unmedzai score. And it took me 35 years to create that. And I'm not kidding.
Gotcha. Yeah.
35 years of pain and suffering.
Wow. That's awesome. There's so much here. We could keep talking, Alan. I want to be real cognizant of your time. So, two questions, then I'm going to let you go. Number one is, what would be your tip of the day? Maybe it's something that we covered already. Maybe it's something that is inside that hasn't got out yet for you. But what would be your tip of the day for somebody listening?
Everyone, I think the three most important things to build inside of yourself is number one, self belief. Number two, self worth. And those usually do not go hand in hand because high self belief usually creates low self worth because a lot of
Mm.
people try to manipulate you. Okay. And then number three is humility. Very few people have all three of those. Very
Yeah.
few, including me. Okay. So self belief was high, self worth was super low, very, very tough childhood. And that's the polite way to put it. Holy
Sure.
crap.
Yeah.
And then humility wasn't high enough.
Yeah.
And so if you do have the first one, work on the other two. If you
Sure.
don't have the first one, you got to start there because the other two
Gotcha.
most likely are not the issue.
Wow. Yeah, those are month podcasts just in and of themselves, right? So thank you. Self-belief, self-worth, and humility. So thank you for sharing that. So for people listening, Alan, that maybe this sparks something for them, maybe they question for you, they're not sure about Next Level University. Where's the best place for them to connect with you?
There's three ways you can connect, and I really appreciate this. This has been awesome. The three ways to connect is the website is called nextleveluniverse.com. Everything we do, that's why it's Next Level Universe. It's everything next level. Everything we do is on there. The podcast is Next Level University, which is self improvement in your pocket, 1% improvement per day, health, wealth, life, and love every single day from anywhere on the planet, completely free. That's kind of our tagline is be a
Sure,
mentor, male role model. Kevin and I grew up without dads, and we're trying to be the male role models we never had,
sure,
essentially. And if we had us back then, things would have been very different, very different.
sure.
And while we're grateful for where we've ended up, it's comical how different things could have been. And then so the third thing is you can email me, ALAN, my first name, at nextleveluniverse, spelt just like it sounds.com. And you can email me. Just please, if you do, provide context, because obviously we all get a lot of spam. Yeah.
Absolutely. Wow. Well, this has been so helpful. Again, for you listening, I'm hoping that it has opened your concepts up, opened your thoughts, your mind, uh, challenged your mind again. And we always say, rather than jump into your next activity, your next podcast, sit down and think about this. What really was one thing that you want to do different in your life? One thing that you want to, work on, one next level that you want to move to, because again, maybe it's not being a billionaire, maybe it's being X. You get to fill in X, whatever that next level is. I don't even want to taint your thoughts by saying what a next level could be, because then it's my next level and I really want it to be yours. So, thank you so much, Alan, for this. Thanks for what you're doing out in the world, and continuing to have impact on people. And again, can't wait to keep learning from you.
Dave, this was a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. It's very, very clear to me that you are very focused on serving your listeners, which I really appreciate. I've been in the podcast industry for 9 years now, and it has been alarming how few people have that as the primary focus. So I'm really grateful that you do, and it's been a pleasure and an honor. I really appreciate it. Thank you.